Supermoon, and I am so excited to announce that spiritual talks are back. So if you enjoyed my videos on the angels or going into depth about the Akashic Records, what it looks like, all that jazz, I've talked about energies, so on and so forth, get excited for this. In today's video, we're going to be talking about channeling because I am a channeler. I'm going to be going into what that is, what that means, how it works, because I actually got some more in-depth, detailed information from the Akashic Records and my spirit guide about the sort of breakdown of that functionality, how you can do it yourself, what it feels like, my own personal experiences, all of that. Interestingly enough, before I was going to get into this topic, I was actually going to do the spirit of plants. And then my spirit guide said, hey, could you do this topic instead? And I was like, okay, sure, I'll do this topic first. And then many other high vibrational beings came to me individually and requested that as well. So I was like, okay, I don't normally get this many requests on one topic. I, of course, will be happy to do it. So that's what we're going to be going over today. Let's explain what channeling is. So the Akashic Records actually said it perfectly. They said, this is when a being or individual communicates messages, ideas, or full conversations through another individual or being. So this is not like possession or anything like that. You've got full free will, you're good to go, you can cut it off at any time. This is more of a telephone, if you will, a living telephone. You become a living telephone when it's happening. Now, you've probably infamously heard people talking and having this happen as channelers with aliens or beings from like a totally different dimension. But you can do it with angels. I actually most commonly do it with spirit guides and elemental spirits, but the gamut of which you can channel and use to your advantage can get really creative and is quite widespread. For example, I have channeled people's selves, future selves, like 6 months from now, 3 years from now, in order to gain and better understand themselves and what they can work on or use to their advantage or look further into, because they can already know what will happen, so to speak. But you can even do this with ego, interestingly enough. And you can even reprogram the ego to be more complimentary and supportive and uplift the person rather than maybe a more repetitive negative mantra they have in their head. You can even channel somebody's higher self. So you can see that it has an array of uses and things you can use to your advantage. Keep in mind, everyone can channel. Everyone can channel. It's not just solely like humans and then a being somewhere else. Theoretically, when other beings are speaking and having this sort of communication with you, they are in turn channeling. It's just a different way of communicating. So you get the gist. Now, there is a difference between channeling and channeled messages, just to better understand what you're personally experiencing or witnessing or hearing about. Now, the terminology I'm about to use is something I hear most commonly used and terminology I use as well, but I wouldn't say it is declaratively the vocabulary. I just want to be clear about that. So when somebody is channeling or they are a channeler, the information is coming through them and then they are speaking or acting out the message. It is happening in real time, and that is the act in which the information is passing through and being expressed. But a channeled message is a little more nuanced, you could say. So you could use the term a channeled message, implying that at another time you channeled in this kind of way, and you were saying it's happened then, it's not happening now, I am speaking as the individual I am without that influence or having it go through me, and therefore this is a past tense, a channeled message. Or you could be somebody who has received information, and this could be through an instant download, which would be like receiving some form of information in a couple of seconds. So like in a few seconds, you know several paragraphs worth of information. Or you could have had it communicated into your brain through audio or images, and it was just given to you, and that wouldn't be channeling. It would be message received in a different way, but you could theoretically say it's a channeled message in that way. But that's why it gets kind of interesting when you say channeled message, because theoretically you could be talking about full-on channeling or just receiving any kind of message, information at a previous point, and now you're talking about this. How it works. This is really cool information I got from the Akashic Records because as a channeler, I know my own personal experiences and how it feels, which I will be getting to in one moment. But to know that yet again, as I continue to research and dig into what this kind of all means, there is every single time some sort of system in play or reason as to why you experience the world around you, whether it be for synchronicities or things happening or not happening. And as we better understand the system, it's either just like full on interesting, or we can use it to our benefit and advantage, which is like the whole point of my intuition course and my tarot course, but nonetheless, to talk about how it works. So first, the individual needs to be like, hey, I would like to reach out to somebody and I want to engage with them in this specific way. So you want to specifically engage with them through channeling. Remember, channeling is information going through you and then you are then proceeding to express it through you. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. So the Akashic Record says this sort of invitation you're putting out into the universe can be done on a soul level or consciously. Now, interestingly enough, they did not say subconsciously. It's even deeper than that. And when we say soul level, it's deeper than subconscious, but the idea is the same. It's that you might not have known in your heart of hearts that that's what you wanted. This was really helpful because I then proceeded to ask the Akashic Records, but what about when it's like involuntary? Because I know for many other channelers, including myself, the first time I channeled in this type of conscious way, it felt involuntary. I was like, what's happening? You know what I mean? But they said, and I cannot stress this enough, I've asked many different beings countless times, the Akashic Records says themselves that free will is absolute. So this is a free will thing. But essentially, that on a soul level, you wanted to experience this. So while you might not be consciously aware when it's initially happening, you, in your heart of hearts, wanted it, you sent it out to the universe, and then it started happening, essentially. They said, this reason can be done on a soul level. It is to force the individual to acknowledge their gifts, like you're forcing yourself to acknowledge your gifts. And it's our choice that we do this. Now, going onwards, this is where it gets even more specific and interesting. The first time you are channeling, specifically your spirit guides, your spirit guides are going to choose the perfect connection for you to have your channeling. When I say perfect connection, I'm saying the being in question that's going to speak through you. And this is where it gets also really interesting because many beings that communicate through other channelers might not even know humans exist. And so for both of you in question, you're kind of like, oh, what's happening? And you're both making this sort of connection, if you will. Unbeknownst to you, behind the scenes, your spirit guide is helping you. It gets really interesting in that too, because it went into, when I was asking the Akashic Records about this, and I was talking to my spirit guide about this, they said, the best being is chosen for them, the individual channeling, and sent to them by their spirit guide to ensure the best experience. Best can mean that it better helps you understand the world or the potential of everything. Because for some people, the idea that a being, like a multifaceted being, could exist somewhere else, and we're talking like beyond this, like we're not even talking about galaxies and like aliens and stuff like that. We're talking like way beyond, like other dimensional stuff. That might not be in their realm of thought. And to experience that, they may start to wonder, well, what else is out there? And that can really broaden their perspective of the world and their experience, and they're diving into themselves and what else is possible. And this in turn can be really positive, essentially, for them. But after this first time, it's essentially like, you do you, boo. Like, you connect to who you want to. You can keep connecting to that being. You can connect to other beings. But that first experience is a beautiful match between you and someone else, helped facilitated by your spirit guide, which I think is adorable. They are the cutest. This is when the specifics come into play, and I'll put a little doodle on the screen. Essentially, you have this frequency that goes through you, but it is specifically the frequency for channeling. It's not your frequency, it's your frequency for channeling. And it looks exactly like this. It is not a channeling as in, I just drew a wiggly line. The way energy is transferred looks differently depending on the process, the mindset, all of that jazz. So this big wave just kind of goes up and through you and out into the universe. Now imagine that your wave is the purple line. The other being is hopping onto this wave, they're the yellow line, and they're sort of riding it, if you will. Now the reason why it's set up this way and all that jazz is, again, we talk about free will. So I'm going to just read what the Akashic Records was telling me. Said chosen or decided being hops onto this specific frequency. That is just for channeling. Any individual can channel, which I love that. This is how it is not possession, but influence. Other beings cannot hop onto this to negatively influence you. This is a means of communication. The whole process is a means of communication. So if you would like to dive into this yourself, do not worry about possession or if they're going to like influence you or like hop in there. They can't in this way. If you are setting the intention of being like, I'm just channeling, I just want to communicate, you can cut that stuff off whenever you want. You have complete free will and choice. Just putting that out there. I also want to include, the Akashic Records also said this includes bodily expressions, and it's that simple. That's what they said. They said it's that simple. As a channeler myself, I had my own fair share of questions for the Akashic Records on this subject, because every channeler channels a little bit differently, and you might not channel the same way every time. This is due to two different factors, I find. One is the being in question you're speaking to. You know, everybody's got a different sort of energy or emotional state they're in, and they will express themselves a little bit differently every time, just like a human will. But that also goes for the channeler in question. So sometimes I'm just like really in that zone, and when I am, it is easier for the being who's expressing themselves through me to hear all the little nuances of how they express themselves. This includes maybe some gesticulations coming through, and other times I could be channeling that same exact individual and kind of almost sound like I'm tired or in a trance, and I'm just kind of sounding very monotone, letting the information run through me. It just depends on a bunch of different factors and how like deep in it you are. But then there's another question I had. I was asking the Akashic Records about what does it mean, again, because I'm always asking about free will and all that jazz, when somebody isn't there, so to speak. Because, like I said, every channeler channels differently. Now, when I channel, I am totally there. I am sort of sitting on the sidelines and like watching it happen. And my body isn't being like, it's like when I pick up my hand, if the individual picks up my hand, I don't feel like, whoa, like that. It doesn't feel like that. It's almost like I'm fluidly ready to do whatever it is that they want expressed, but I definitely don't know what's going to be said or expressed next. And it gets kind of crazy because when I've done spirit guides, because they can so easily read other people's minds, the spirit guide speaking through me will say something, the person in question is thinking something, that spirit guide reads their minds, and then as the information's coming through me, they are saying things that I would not know. You know what I mean? Like when we talk about it happening, it's just like wild of an experience. Anyways, I'm very consciously there, but I'm like watching it and letting them take the reins. But I'm aware by the end of it what happened. Some channelers full on blackout. They don't know what's happened. They got to go back and watch a video or tape. They go deep under it. So that was my question essentially when I was asking them, why is that the case? So talking about the level of cognitiveness. So this is what the Akashic Records said on that subject. When an individual goes into a state of trance, that's how they described it. When you're just like blacking out, you're in a state of trance. They start to pay less attention to the physical world around them. And I will say that as someone, even though I'm more consciously there than maybe some other channelers, I do start to feel like I don't have a body. You know what I mean? Like I'm just a whiff of molecules on a very core level, and just it's almost like, how do I explain this? You know when people work really hard to meditate and to experience different states like that, you can experience that state and also have a conversation. So it's very fun and wild, and you can get there quicker, which I really like. Anyways, they start to pay less attention to the physical world around them. This causes them to either leave, we're talking about leave as in they go just so deep in their mind they've checked out, and go deeper into their inner being, which is a formless place of happiness. Or the individual can choose to stay and witness, which is what I do. I'm like, I want to know what's going on. What if the individual, and this is me saying this, what if the individual finds it hard to stay and you feel like you don't mean to but start to check out? This when the Akashic Record said, this individual has blockages and has made an inner agreement with themselves that they find it easier to stay away. But this can be changed. This then leads me to the importance of channeling, because channeling is more than another cool thing you're hearing about. It is something that you can practice yourself. I see people always looking for the next thing or method in which to experience different states of being or mindsets, or through meditation or high vibrations. And this is something unconventional you might not have been aware of, can really take you there very quickly, but also can be used in a practical way. But before we get into how you can start practicing it, I want to share what the Akashic Records said on the importance of channeling and then share my perspective. So they said, the reason why this skill is important is it opens up lines of communications with others outside your immediate dimension, area, planet, and yourself. Communication is not a telephone that goes from here to there. It is a multifaceted, purpose-filled method that cures, heals, inspires, and opens up the mind and the belief system in a highly effective way. To channel is to feel another's intentions. Only when we can feel another's energy in such an intimate way can we truly understand another's point of view. But I want to go a little further into that idea as someone who channels themselves regularly. Yes, to understand someone else's perspective and become a more empathetic person and really get it and feel more connected to the world is beautiful and definitely a part of the process. But there are ways of existing you could not possibly fathom because you just are, like example, you might connect to something that has no physical body. It is formless, or it might just be a being of light. And people will take years to meditate to get into that state of mind. And in a matter of seconds, in a matter of minutes, when this being's energy is going through you, you get it. And from understanding something that's formless, that opens up different ways of viewing the world and achieving ideas and concepts and answers you would have never even possibly touched if you hadn't been having that sort of state of mind, energy pass through you. And that includes even getting a break from your own inner monologue. So when I channel, I can also, while they are speaking and I'm witnessing whatever they're going to say, I can actually hear their inner monologue. So I can hear them like sorting out their thoughts, and then I can hear the end conclusion. So they're both saying something, but I'm also hearing what it took to get there and all the other background information. And when you hear other beings in inner monologue, it really makes you realize how you could possibly approach a situation, viewing things, where you could explore concepts you would have never possibly thought of exploring. Like I said, it is just something that cannot possibly be achieved in any other way other than through this method. Now, that being said, something funny that I just wanted to give you sort of a I don't know if I would say warning, because it's not a negative thing, but something to help you better understand the process when you are practicing channeling yourself. When the energy is going through you, when they're transmitting is going through you, sometimes what first comes out of you is gobbledygook nonsense. And I'm talking wild stuff. So especially when I channel elemental spirits, they don't care. They have no social cues. One time I channeled this one being, and they just started dancing. They were dancing, they were singing, they were all over the place, because that was what was first coming out, the energy. And my body and my voice, as it was channeling, was just channeling the energy before even the information. And then as I got deeper into the experience, it chilled out and it was just information coming through. Or for example, when I channel some spirit guides, sometimes their energy is just so intense when it comes through, before I can get to sensical information that is being expressed, I just can't stop laughing. I'm just laughing and laughing and laughing, because I'm first just getting in tune with the energy and I'm expressing the energy, if you will. Now, even when individuals do come through with channeling, let's just say their norm isn't always our norm. So I've had beings full on sing all of their information. I've had beings rhyme continuously. I've had beings, well, this is really interesting, especially with spirit guides. If they have like answered your question and they're kind of waiting for you to more figure things out, you might ask a question and they'll just look at you and just stare. And as somebody who is like internally like, say something, are we supposed to be saying something? They're just patiently like, they'll tell me in their head, they'll be like, they'll figure it out. We're giving them time to figure it out. But it just, from an outside perspective, looks like just dead silence and staring. So don't be surprised, depending on who you're channeling, things can just go in a bit of a unique direction. How can you then channel yourself? So in order to do this, if you feel a little shy and you want to practice it by yourself, you can just record yourself either through voice memos or like video or something like that, so you can kind of like watch it back yourself, because again, you won't know until you're channeling how cognitive you are, essentially. And you are welcomed, as per usual, to ask your spirit guide to be there to support you, so that if you're concerned at all of like, what if I wanted to stop but I'm not consciously there, your spirit guide can come in and like help you if you are afraid of that. It doesn't mean you won't be able to, but if there's that fear, they can be there for that support and help you in that way. So first, you're going to get into a meditative state. You can do this through a bunch of different ways, but I would recommend listening to some white noise like a fan or an air conditioner unit, or, cars on the street. Or maybe you're comfortable with sitting in silence and just meditate for a little bit. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, how good you do, how deep it is, and you're just chilling out, essentially. After you chill out, you're going to set that intention. That means that you say it out loud, say it internally in your head, but you're just going to take a second and go, I have the intention of channeling, I'm going to channel. and then you go and channel. Remember, this is your first time consciously channeling. Your spirit guide's gonna hook you up with it. And if it isn't your first time, you can always ask your spirit guide, like, hey, can you like connect me to someone that I'd be happy with? You could even channel like your own spirit guide and have a conversation with them theoretically like that. But anyways, when you go to channel, you are going to just start talking. I would highly recommend just saying gibberish at first and just be really relaxed about it. There's no pressure when it happens, and just start saying nonsense. What you're doing is you're getting yourself in sort of a permission-based state of mind to be like, hey, whatever comes out, I'm willing letting it. I'm not gonna block it or step in the way and not believe that it's not going to come through. And then if you start to notice sentences come through, you're starting to channel and you're going to go into that state of mind. You also can, if that's not the method for you, after you meditate and you chill out, just start talking to yourself. Start planning your day, questioning the universe. Ask questions and answer and start getting into it. You'd be surprised how much this is channeling, and it starts to kick in. It's something that takes practice. You have to take time to notice when there is a vibrational shift. If you start to notice like, whoa, when I got an answer that like for sure wasn't me, like I didn't know that, or I wonder why I said that, and just start to practice it over time. You'll start to feel it coming through stronger. Maybe you'll notice vibrational changes that when it happens, you can kind of more just pay attention. The more you focus on something, the more it becomes predominant. And essentially they can come through in this way. Remember, practice makes perfect. So that's essentially what you do. You meditate, you start to practice, and have it come through you. Also, keep in mind for fun facts when we talk about the practicality of channeling, you would be shocked how much stuff is in the movie industry and the television industry, entertainment industry in general, that is channeled information people didn't realize was sort of being funneled through them. I'm telling you, it is a lot. And once you start to be aware of what's channeled, and if you are familiar with being able to communicate and contact with your spirit guides to get that direct information of yes and no, I go over all of that in my intuition training course and my tarot training course. I'm just letting you know that's there as a resource if you'd like to use it. But you start to be like, wait a minute, if that's real, then does that mean this is real? It's wild. It's a very fun time finding out what's been channeled or not. Now that then leads me to my next point. So I have posted a video where I am channeling my forever spirit guide over on my Patreon. I've also just posted what I can describe as sort of like a spiritual checklist, because there are often common things that people run into, so to speak. And this checklist that I've come up with my spirit guide is something you can kind of run down, ask yourself all these things to essentially remove stuff, soul fragment loss, so on and so forth. And I just thought it'd be kind of handy in your practical everyday, because often the more you get into stuff, the more you can just go, hey, is it this? And you'll start to notice how commonly things pop up and you can use it to your advantage. But I also wanted to let you know that if you enjoy spiritual talk videos from me or any of this type of information, I have something like over 50 videos so far over on my Patreon. My goal of it is to become sort of like a spiritual Netflix, where it's partially like telling stories and guided meditations, things that are practical or interesting, but a lot of the time I'm just answering direct questions and going into detail. And if I don't personally know the information from my own experiences, I consult my spirit guides and I also consult the Akashic records. And I wanted to read you a list of a couple of the subjects I've gone over so far. So one of the videos is actually a previously channeled video, channeling like we're talking about, where I channeled my spirit guide that predominantly helps me with tarot, so you can kind of meet them and see what they're about. I went to the Akashic records to investigate ego. I looked into, can you manifest with blockages? I go into depth about dreams, how they came to be, What if you don't dream? Is it necessary to dream? I go into great detail with soul fragment loss with a guided meditation as to how to get them back and explaining all of that. I talk about a conversation and an experience I had with a being from the sixth dimension. My most powerful manifestation technique, which I'm very happy. I came up with this manifestation technique like a while ago, and the results are always solid. And not only have I seen it previously before I shared it, but then after I shared it, other people were like, it worked immediately for me. So I'm very, very happy about that. I recently talked about fairies, the spiritual meaning behind video games. I can do live traveling to the spirit realm where I'm able to simultaneously be in the spirit realm and then share and like communicate and narrate everything that's happening. Those are really fun. I do those regularly. Explaining the differences and the general system, explaining like spirit guides, angels, etc. I go into depth about sleep paralysis, different kinds of souls. Did you know there's different kinds of souls? Ghosts, yes, I have plenty of experiences with those, the reality and my personal experiences with them. Messages from the angelic council, parallel lives told to me by an angelic creature, and how to communicate with high vibrational beings. And that's separate than channeling. So as you can see, I have a pretty wide gamut. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to become a supporter. But either way, leave a like on this video, comment, let me know what you're thinking. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can see all of my videos. I am wishing you the best. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Goodbye.